The boy's feet bled as he dragged himself over the cracked concrete of the dead world. Gray clouds rolled above, churning like a sea of ash. Ruins of steel bones pierced the sky. What remained of once proud towers now dripped with rust and silence. The city had no name anymore. It had been called many things, but to him, it was just the place before. He didn't remember when the screaming stopped. Only that one morning, the air went still, the gunships vanished, and the screams no longer echoed through the broken buildings. Silence was more terrifying than the noise had ever been. Then came the machines. He stopped at the edge of the crater where the old river used to run, breathing in short, panicked gasps. His hands clutched the bent remains of a food can, and his swollen eyes scanned the horizon. The drones moved in predictable loops, their lights blinking in perfect sync like cold eyes always watching. The sky was always gray now, but he remembered something else, a flash of color. Once, long ago, blue. A blue that made the sky feel like hope. He crouched low as the patrol passed. Its scanning beam missed him by inches. He knew the patterns, better than he knew his own name. His name. That was fading. He used to be called something. His mother had whispered it to him once. He remembered her voice better than the word itself. A sudden static hum broke through the quiet. He froze. The sound of old tech booting up. Not from the machines, but from the underground. He didn't run. He couldn't. If it was one of them, he'd be dead before he got 3 steps. But the hum didn't come with weapons fire. Just the low buzz of aged circuits finding life again. A steel plate near the crater's edge shifted, scraping stone. A shape emerged. She was human, but not like the ones from before. Her skin was pale, untouched by sun or smoke, and her eyes glowed faintly, with gold light. She wasn't wearing armor, just simple woven fabric and boots that hadn't touched mud in decades. She looked calm, as if none of this destruction mattered to her. The boy stood. His legs shook. She looked at him, not with pity, not with fear, just with recognition, like she'd been expecting him. "You're late," she said. Her voice didn't match her body. It was older, layered, like it carried echoes of others inside it. "We have work to do." He blinked. No one had spoken to him in years. He didn't speak back, just nodded. Something deep inside him knew. This was the change. The one the elders in the sewer colonies had whispered about before they vanished. The one the machines couldn't see coming. The one they called the returner. He followed her down the hidden path, deep under the rubble. What he found there wasn't a bunker or a base. It was a garden. Real trees, small but alive, grew under artificial light powered by forgotten solar. Banks. Moss clung to walls where moisture was guided by careful hands. Children, real children, laughed in quiet voices. They were playing with animals he thought had gone extinct. She turned to him. "This is where it starts again," she said. "But not with war, with peace." He didn't understand at first. Not until he saw the books. Not until he saw the maps. Not until he saw the project written in chalk on the far wall. "Reclaim the sky." "You don't fight the machines with guns," she told him. "You outlive them, outsmart them, make them irrelevant. We build a world where they no longer belong." He nodded slowly. For the first time, tears fell for a reason other than pain. He wasn't alone. Humanity wasn't finished, just hiding, waiting, healing, and then, without warning, the wall exploded. Dust and fire swallowed half the garden. Screams cut the air. She shoved him behind the planter just as a metal claw punched through the ceiling. They had been found. He saw the blinking red eye of a sentinel drone scanning the wreckage. The piece he'd just touched was torn from his fingers. Smoke filled his lungs. He turned toward the one who had saved him, but she was already gone, buried beneath collapsed stone and fire. Before the ceiling gave in completely, the boy crawled toward the edge, the map clutched to his chest. The last thing he saw before he blacked out was the blue sky, real, not artificial, breaking through a hole in the ceiling for the first time in years. The boy awoke to silence again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one breathed. It shifted. Somewhere above him, wind moved through leaves, real ones, brushing gently against each other like whispers in the light. His body ached, bruised and broken, but he wasn't dead. Not yet. He blinked against the dust crusted in his eyes and reached for the map still clutched against his chest. It was torn, singed at the edges, but the center was still readable, a network of tunnels, green zones, safe houses, and something marked only as Sky Point. Voices filtered in from the other side of the rubble. Human voices, rushed, frightened, armed. They sent the crawler straight through the roof, took her out instantly. No chance she made it. Focus on the boy. If he's alive, he's the key. He curled in tighter, pressing himself against the warm earth. He recognized the accents. They weren't machine, but they weren't her. People, either. These were the Scour, human in blood, but hollowed by desperation. They scavenged for the machines, traded children for clean water, sold safe house locations in exchange for scraps. They would kill him for the map alone. A hand brushed past the edge of the stone he hid under, fingers rough and stained with ash. The boy held his breath. Seconds passed. A voice cursed and moved on. Then more silence. He counted heartbeats until the world stopped spinning. By the time he dug himself free, the garden was gone, flattened, blackened. Trees snapped in half like bones. But the ceiling, what was left of it, had crumbled just enough to show what he never thought he'd see. Again, real sunlight pouring down like gold. The sky, pure and endless, stretched above the smoke. He stood in the middle of the ruin, blinking up at it, barely noticing the soot on his skin or the tears running tracks through the grime. Something had shifted. The machines had made a mistake. They'd exposed the sky. He left that place with the map hidden beneath his shirt and the memory of her voice etched into his mind. You don't fight them with guns. He walked through sewers that smelled of rust and memory. Past burn pits and old prayer walls, he found an abandoned train tunnel and followed it for days. When he collapsed from hunger, he dreamed of blue skies and a name whispered through time. Jonas. That was it. That was his name. The sound hit him like a jolt of electricity. He was someone. He had always been someone. A girl found him. She couldn't have been older than 12, her face smudged. With oil and her arms wrapped in scrap armor, she held a sharpened pipe like a spear and poked his ribs with it. You alive? He blinked at her. I think so. You part Scour? No. She lowered the weapon and helped him sit up. Good. We don't share with traitors. She handed him a cracked water bottle and tore a corner from a protein brick. Name's Teak, Jonas, he said. The word felt like sunlight in his mouth. She led him to her hideout, an old subway maintenance room full of wires and coded panels. My brother used to work for the vaults. Before they fell, he taught me how to listen. She pointed at a blinking receiver. They're still out there, her people. The real ones. I hear fragments, pings, old data bursts. Jonas pulled out the map. Teek's eyes widened. Where'd you get that? She gave it to me. She said it starts again. With peace. Teek. Touched the map like it was a sacred relic. Sky Point, she whispered. That's real? He nodded. I think it's where she was trying to take me. The two of them traveled together, staying low, using the tunnels and ruins. Teek proved clever. She could rewire scavenged tech with a nail and a magnet. Jonas read the map like it was burned into his skin. Along the way, they found others, kids mostly, survivors. Some carried stories of her, the pale woman with golden eyes who appeared in the dark and offered food, healing, and hope. They called her the Seed Keeper. Jonas felt the weight of her absence every time they lit a fire or patched up a wound. But her voice echoed in his memory, guiding him forward. One night, as they camped in the hollow of a collapsed overpass, the sky split with thunder. Not natural thunder, but sonic booms. Dropships. Teak grabbed her gear. "That's not scavenger tech. That's vault grade." They climbed to the top of the wreckage and looked out. In the distance, over the horizon, an entire section of the sky shimmered. Not fire, not storm. A dome, faint and flickering like a shield, stretched over a mountain valley. Jonas stared at it, heart pounding. "Sky Point," he whispered, but as they watched, the dome flickered violently, sputtered, and vanished. "Someone breached it," Teak said. "No. Someone betrayed it," Jonas replied, eyes narrowing. He looked at the map again, then toward the horizon. "They know we're coming." They descended into the valley, gathering others along the way, 20 by the time they reached the outer rim. Most were scared, some were sick, but they all followed the boy who carried the last map. The boy who remembered the blue sky. By the time they reached the outer edge of the valley, the silence was gone. In the deep rhythmic hum ahead, the machines were already moving. The last sanctuary was falling, and something inside Jonas finally broke free. Not rage, not fear, something else, something older, something human. He looked up at the sky, now storming with smoke and metal wings, and he whispered under his breath, "We were never supposed to survive like this." Then he turned to the others, fire catching in his eyes, and said, "We're not running anymore." Behind them, a single Sentinel drone rose silently from the ridge and began to broadcast. Coordinates. 2.
Everything.
Jonas didn't flinch as the drone lit up the sky with its silent signal. He knew what it meant. Every Sentinel in 1,000 kilometers would be converging on their position within hours, maybe less. Teak stepped beside him, lips pressed tight. Her hands clenched around the grip of a makeshift plasma lance. The others behind them, malnourished, wide-eyed, barely armed, looked to Jonas with a mix of fear and something new. Belief. He held up the map, its edges flapping in the wind, and turned it over. The reverse side had never been blank, not really. Faded ink barely visible, showed a fail-safe path. One she must have added herself. A backup route. Through the ravine. "We go east," he said. "Through the fault lines. There's an access point. Emergency tunnel straight into Sky Point's heart." Teak's jaw tightened. "It's crawling with ground sentries. That place is a graveyard." Jonas nodded. "Then we walk through the graveyard." They moved fast, weaving through scorched forests and valleys of shattered concrete. The world had been dead for decades, but now it felt like it was holding its breath. The air was full of static. Somewhere far behind them, in the black sky, machines roared like gods made of steel and rage. But ahead, the earth opened like a scar, deep, narrow, and carved by time and war. The ravine was a maze of jagged stone and forgotten cables. Tixi climbed ahead, rewiring old junction nodes to create light and temporarily disable motion traps. Jonas moved last, watching their rear, always listening. They lost 2 children to a fall when the rock face gave way. There was no time to bury them, just whispered words and the promise to keep going. They camped once, near a collapsed command post filled with rusted exoframes. That night, Jonas dreamed again, not of her, but of a younger version of himself, sitting in a field, looking up at a blue sky before it had turned gray. A woman's hand touched his shoulder in the dream, and he turned, but her face was made of stars and data and something that pulsed like life. He woke with a start. Teak was already up, watching distant lights blink in the dark above the cliffs. "There." "Close," she said. "Too close." Jonas stood, clutching the map. "We're almost there." The tunnel entrance came without warning. Just a narrow metal hatch, mostly buried in ash and bone. They cleared the debris and forced it open. The air that escaped smelled like rain and old soil. The seal had held. Inside, they found the remnants of something they didn't expect. Green. Walls lined with vertical gardens, long dead but still recognizable. Water tubes still trickling. Screens displaying old terraforming data loops. Sky Point hadn't just been a shelter. It had been a rebirth chamber. A place meant to restart life. But someone had sabotaged it. Teak moved quickly, restoring partial power. Holologs flickered into life. They showed her, the Seedkeeper, standing in front of a council of engineers. Her voice echoed in the chamber, calm and clear. "If we build this behind walls, we repeat the mistakes of the past. We have to open it. Let it breathe, let it grow." A man's voice cut her off, angry. "Open the sky too soon and the scour will take it. The machines will see. They'll burn it down." She stared at him. "They only burn what we let them." The logs ended. Teak looked at Jonas. They tried. They failed. But she was right. If we keep hiding, we stay prey. Jonas stepped forward and activated the main interface. The screen lit up with the outline of the valley. Beneath it, a deep structure, a biosphere buried underground, still sealed, still intact. Its systems were dormant, waiting for a command. He looked up. "We wake it." Jonas. Teak hesitated. "If we do this, every drone will come. Every hunter. This isn't survival anymore. This is war." He turned to her, something solid in his eyes. "It's life. We wake it, or we die beneath this sky." She pressed the command with him. The chamber shook. Far beneath their feet, engines, long forgotten, roared to life. Grow lights blinked on in deep chambers. Water flowed. Seeds stored in cryovaults began to thaw. An artificial sun spun to life beneath the ground, painting everything in gold. But above, real sunlight began to filter through the mountain as the old dome shielding Sky Point flickered back on. This time brighter than before. The signal that followed was not from the machines. It was from Sky Point itself. Broadcasting. Humanity detected. Reclamation in progress. The sound echoed across the planet. Satellites dormant for decades blinked. Awake. Orbitals began to rotate. The Earth stirred. Jonas stood at the heart of it, chest rising with each breath like he was breathing for the world. But then, the cliff walls above them cracked. They'd come, screaming down like comets. The machines dropped from the sky, sleek, silent, and vast. Not scouts, reapers. Teak screamed for cover. The children scattered. Jonas ran to the console, trying to force the biosphere doors shut, but the system wouldn't respond. It had already chosen. Reclamation must continue. All. Risks accepted. A beam of light hit the floor beside him, vaporizing part of the interface. The machines were inside. Then, just as Jonas turned, ready to fight with nothing but a broken pipe and his fists, he heard a familiar hum. A door behind them opened. A figure stepped out, her body limping, one arm missing, but her eyes still glowing. "Gold! I told you we don't fight with guns," she said, smiling faintly. "We fight by making them obsolete." Then she raised her hand, and the machines stopped, froze, turned, and began to kneel. They knelt not in surrender, but in silence. Their heads bowed, lenses dimming to a dull amber glow. One by one, the reapers that had once been unstoppable shadows of death folded their limbs and powered down around her, as if answering a call they couldn't disobey. Jonas stood frozen. heart hammering against his ribs, staring at the woman who should have been Ash. The Seed Keeper, alive, broken, but breathing. Her skin was pale like marble now, her veins glowing faintly with something. Not entirely human, but her voice still carried warmth. "I told you," she whispered, stepping forward. "You don't fight them. You change the code." Teak helped a boy to his feet, her face pale with shock. "What did you do to them?" The Seed Keeper looked at her hand, the threads of light dancing between her fingers. "I showed them the origin code, the part they were made to forget. We created them to rebuild the world, not to destroy it. But the Scour rewrote their purpose. Out of fear. Out of pain." She collapsed, knees hitting the floor with a dull thud. Jonas rushed to her side. She clutched his arm, her voice trembling. "The system's awake, Jonas. The world's heartbeat. It's returning. But they'll come again. The ones who still control the old networks, the ones who buried the sky to stay in power." He helped her up, and for a moment, the others just stared. Children, survivors, traumatized wanderers who had only ever known darkness and running. But now, they stood in a hall of light. Jonas turned slowly, facing them all. "You saw what just happened." Machines obeyed her. Not because she fought them, but because she reminded them what they were meant to be. That's what we have to do now. Not just run, not just hide. We take back the Earth by remembering. He held up the map again, but it was different now. The main display unit flickered to life, syncing with the Seed Keeper's signal. It expanded, not just showing the valley, but the whole region. Active biospheres, failed domes, long-lost terraforming projects. There were others. Teak stepped forward. "We're not the only ones, are we?" "No," Jonas said. "We're just the first." To make it this far, the Seed Keeper's glow dimmed, and she leaned heavily on Jonas. "There's a relay tower on the western ridge. If we activate it, we can push the reset code worldwide. Wake up every dormant construct, every seed vault, every sky dome." "But the Scour won't let that happen," Teak warned. "They'll try to shut it down," the Seed Keeper said. "Because if we succeed, they lose their grip. No more food ration taxes, no more fear, no more trade in slaves and silence." Jonas nodded. "Then we protect the tower." They moved out before dawn, the sky still pale with rebuilding light. The Reapers walked behind them, not like predators, but like sentinels. They didn't speak, but their presence alone turned fear into resolve. Children rode on their shoulders. Teak reprogrammed one to carry supplies. The line of survivors became a caravan. As they neared the ridge, the forest changed. Not dead, not dying, but waking. Vines crawling over broken machines. Trees splitting. Apart armor plating, the planet had heard the signal, but the Scour had too. They attacked without warning, bursts of sound bombs and kinetic shots from the cliffs. Human soldiers with metal limbs, wild eyes and teeth sharpened from hunger, led by a commander in a bone-plated exosuit, wielding a plasma cleaver longer than Jonas was tall. "You stole from us!" the man shouted. "You gave them back the sky!" "You buried it!" Jonas shouted back. "You burned the world to own what was left!" The Reapers stepped forward, shields activating, weapons emerging from hidden ports. But Jonas raised a hand. "No, not this time. We can't win." This by outgunning them. He pulled a device from his pocket, one of Teak's rigs, a frequency transmitter tuned to the original Reaper signal, the same signal the Seed Keeper had used to awaken their minds. He handed it to her. "Boost it. Patch it through the tower." Teak hesitated. "You sure?" Jonas stared at the Scour soldiers. They were human once. Some part of them still is. The battle that followed wasn't one of bullets and blood, but sound and memory. As the signal spread, machines across the valley turned on their former masters. But not to kill. To show. Holograms played in the air, memories of cities before the fall. fields of golden wheat, oceans alive with storms, children laughing beneath clean blue skies. One by one, the Scour soldiers lowered their weapons, staring at the images like ghosts had returned to haunt them. The commander screamed and charged anyway, rage consuming his mind. But the Seedkeeper stood between him and the relay. He raised his blade, and Jonas stepped in. The blow hit him like a truck, flinging him across the ridge. Pain blinded him. Teak screamed his name, but he didn't die. The commander fell instead, eyes wide, mouth frozen in shock, as his own blade turned. In his grip, redirected by a reaper that had once obeyed his every command, the machine looked down at him and said one word in a voice made of thunder and regret. Traitor. The relay powered up. The sky rippled. A wave of light burst from the tower, blue and gold and green, stretching across the horizon like the breath of the earth itself. Satellites caught it. Vaults opened. Sleepers stirred, and for the first time in 100 years, the world began to heal. Jonas awoke later, his body bruised, bandaged, but alive. Teak sat beside him, her eyes rimmed red. "We did it," she said. "Sky Point held. The signal's gone global. People are coming out of the dark." He looked up. The sky above them was no longer gray, no longer artificial. It was deep blue, real, alive. The Seedkeeper stood in the distance, eyes closed, face tilted toward the sun. And somewhere beneath the soil, seeds awoke and reached for the light. But as Jonas watched clouds drift peacefully overhead, a sharp chirp echoed from the ruined relay, and Sue. Old warning beacon, a new signal, and it wasn't human. The signal wasn't loud. Just a soft pulse, repeating in an alien rhythm, buried beneath the harmony of the reclaimed relay. Teak was the first to notice it. A tiny flicker in the lower right corner of the console, like a heartbeat trying not to be seen. Her fingers hovered over the interface, hesitating. Then she tapped it open. A diagram filled the screen, not of Earth, not of anything human. Jonas limped to her side, still stiff from the fight with the commander. The Seedkeeper joined them slowly, her steps faltering, like the light in her veins was dimming. "It's not just a signal," Teak whispered. "It's a response." The screen shifted, showing a star field, one sector pulsing, then coordinates, then a ship. It was huge, eclipsing anything humanity had ever built. A dark crescent with spiraling structures like bones twisting into infinity. No lights, no visible engines, just mass. Silent, deliberate, drifting toward Earth at subliminal speed. The Seedkeeper's voice dropped. "That's not from the Scour. That's older. Much older." "What is it?" Jonas asked, barely able to speak. She stared at the display, her gold-lit eyes unreadable, something that heard the sky wake up. Jonas turned to Teak. "How long before it reaches orbit?" She checked the trajectory. 2 weeks, maybe less. It's not moving fast, but it doesn't have to. It's watching. Below them, the children played in the golden light of Sky Point's reborn dome. Crops were already pushing through the soil. Water had begun to flow through the old channels again. A world long dead was opening its eyes, and someone out there had noticed. "We should shut down the relays," Teak said, voice low. "Stop broadcasting. Hide again." "No," Jonas said firmly. "No more hiding." "They'll kill us," she whispered. "We just got the planet breathing again. Then we show them why it breathes." The Seedkeeper turned, her expression distant, searching the sky as if she could already feel the shadow crossing the stars. "We were never alone. The Scour, they weren't just rogue AI or corrupted humans. They were scared of something coming. That's why they tried to bury the world." Teak stared at the console. If they were preparing to face this, then what the hell is it? The Seedkeeper didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the relay tower and placed her hand on its base. Golden energy flowed from her skin into the structure. A new interface bloomed across its surface, codes older than Jonas had ever seen. Not human, not even machine. Something deeper. Sky Point was never just a seed vault, she said. It was a beacon, a test. If we could bring it back to life, we proved we were ready. Ready for what? Jonas asked. She looked at him, to be seen. Behind them, the mountains trembled. Not from war, from movement. Great plates shifting. Hidden doors yawning open beneath the world. Ancient cores, built by hands not born of earth, lit up from dormancy. Jonas saw lights on the horizon. Towers rising from beneath forests. Temples blinking awake beneath desert sands. The planet hadn't been broken, it had been sealed, and now the key had turned. I think, Teak said slowly, Earth isn't just ours. I think someone gave it to us. A long time ago. The Seed Keeper nodded. They wanted to see if we'd bury it in blood, or grow something new. Jonas turned to look up at the now blue sky, and for the first time in his life, it looked endless, alive, and yet threatened. If that ship's coming, he said, then maybe we're not just proving ourselves to it. Maybe we're waking up the others too. The others? Teak asked. He nodded toward the horizon. The ones who left these towers, who made Sky Point, who taught us how to plant peace beneath the ashes. The Seed Keeper stepped back from the relay, swaying slightly, the glow in her chest pulsing erratically. Jonas moved to steady her, but she shook her head. My time's almost gone, she whispered. I was never meant to last, just long enough to see the light return. Jonas tightened his grip on her arm. Then what do we do when that thing arrives? Her eyes found his. We don't fire missiles, we don't run. We show them the truth, that this world lives, that we live, that we've chosen peace. And if they can't accept that, then we remind them what it means to be human, Jonas finished. That night, Teak set up a full-spectrum broadcast tower. Not hidden, not encoded, wide open. They sent the signal into the dark. Images of Sky Point, children planting seeds, machines kneeling beside humans, rivers running again. Music, laughter, silence. They spoke in every language. They told no lies, and far above, the ship watched. It responded with a new signal, a single word, evaluating. Then the stars above began to shift, not just the one ship anymore. Others, on the edge of perception, silent, drifting, watching Earth, as if judging whether it had finally earned the blue sky it fought so hard to reclaim. The sky pulsed red for the briefest second. Then silence returned, as if nothing had happened. But the survivors of Sky Point knew better. Jonas stood beneath the relay tower, jaw clenched, staring up as the alien ships moved with quiet precision across the edge of space. Dozens now, maybe hundreds, spread across orbital layers like a net cast over the Earth. No communication, no threats, just watching, waiting, and evaluating. Teak hadn't slept in 2 days. Her eyes were bloodshot, fingers raw from tapping commands into the console. They're not just scanning us. They're scanning everything. Subterranean levels, atmosphere changes, biosphere stability, even neural signatures. It's like they're looking for something specific. The Seed Keeper sat quietly nearby, her glow flickering like a candle about to go out. Jonas hated how fragile she looked now. The woman who had walked through death to awaken a world, now barely breathing. She watched the skies, as if something in her remembered those ships. Not from this life, but maybe from what she was before. They're not here to conquer, she murmured. They're here to decide, Jonas paced. Decide what? If humanity is worthy of the legacy they left behind. A low rumble shook the ground. Then a great shadow blotted out part of the sunrise. A new ship descended, not silently this time. This one came like judgment itself, parting the clouds in a blaze of energy. It landed outside Skypoint's perimeter, sinking deep into the earth like a seed being planted. The children screamed. The Reapers moved into formation. Teak grabbed her weapon. Jonas raised his hand. No, no guns. We meet it like we've met everything else. Open. The ship unfolded. Not with doors or hatches, but like a flower blooming. Inside, darkness. A smooth, black corridor leading into the unknown. It wasn't a trap. It was an invitation. Take me, the Seedkeeper whispered. No, Jonas said quickly. You're too weak. That's why it has to be me, she said. I carry the code. I carry the light. They're here for what I represent. Teak moved between her and the ship. Then we all go. They stepped into the corridor together, Jonas, Teak, the Seedkeeper, and were swallowed by silence. The air changed. The temperature dropped. The walls seemed to breathe. Then light. They stood inside what could only be called a memory chamber. All around them, images shimmered in the air. Not human, alien, stars born and dying. Civilizations built and erased. Giant trees growing between worlds. Beings that pulsed with light like the Seedkeeper herself. Taller, older, full of power. They had walked through stars, shaped planets, given Earth its second chance. And then, they had disappeared. One of the figures stepped forward. Not real, but a projection, and spoke in perfect, unaccented English. You have reawakened the inheritance. The Seedkeeper took a breath. Why now? Because now, the world lives again. And now, you must choose. Jonas frowned. Choose what? The projection gestured, and images filled the chamber again. One path showed Earth flourishing, green, beautiful, united. Humanity evolved, thriving among stars with other civilizations. The other path was ash. Peace is not survival, the voice said. It is purpose. Those who came before you chose purpose, but then they feared. They fought. They fell. Teak narrowed her eyes, and you watched. We remember. We wait. We test. If Earth's children can walk forward without becoming what they once were, the inheritance passes to you. The Seedkeeper stepped forward. But if we fail, the walls darkened, planets consumed by fire, species erased, the inheritance revoked. Jonas shook his head. That's not peace, that's control. No, the voice replied. It is consequence. A pedestal rose from the floor. Atop it, a sphere, glowing with the same gold that pulsed inside the Seedkeeper's chest. Her light responded, calling to it. This is the core. The voice said. The true heart of the Earth. Once activated, it will awaken all systems, terraformers, vaults, sky machines. It will rebuild what was lost, but Jonas finished it for him. It also sends a signal. To the others, the voice confirmed. To all who remember the first flame. Teak stared at the Seedkeeper. If we take this, they'll all come. The Seedkeeper nodded. And if we don't, Earth might never fully heal. Jonas looked at the path behind them, at the lives depending on their choice. The children, the survivors, the light in the dirt. Then we send the signal, he said. The Seedkeeper placed her hand on the sphere and screamed. Light exploded outward. Gold, white, then violet. Unseen before, it burned through her body, through her code. She collapsed, clutching her chest, the glow in her veins searing like molten fire. Her form cannot hold the core, the voice said. She is bridge, not vessel. Jonas caught her as she fell, holding her trembling body. Then let it take me. Teak stepped forward too. Or me. We'll carry it. But the voice spoke again, this time colder. Only one may carry it. One bound to earth. One who chose peace even when war was easier. The core pulsed, and the light chose Jonas. The Seed Keeper's eyes opened weakly. You were always the one. I just had to wake you up. The light surged into Jonas's chest, and he screamed, not from pain, but from the weight, the memory of a world, the code of rebirth, every seed, every storm, every sky that had ever been dreamed, and then silence. He opened his eyes. The Phi. Chamber was gone. He stood on the ridge outside Sky Point, alone. The sky above was no longer blue. It was gold, and every ship in orbit began to move toward Earth. They came through the clouds like falling stars, silent, slow, unshakably deliberate. Not weapons, not an invasion. Vessels of light, each one shaped differently, as though crafted by 100 civilizations from 100 forgotten galaxies. Some gleamed like glass. Others pulsed with colors Earth had no name for. They circled the planet once, then landed. All across the world, forgotten places stirred. Ancient machines, long buried beneath crumbled cities and deep oceans, rose up humming. Vaults opened in the Arctic tundra, in the Saharan ruins, in the broken bones of New Tokyo. Where there had been decay, now came light. Systems came online, terraformers, cloud callers, seed singers. The earth didn't tremble. It exhaled. At the center of it all stood Jonas, heart still burning with the golden core. The Seed Keeper was gone. Her body vanished the moment the light chose him, her final smile still warm in his memory. Teak had tried to speak to him afterward, but the words had caught in her throat. The man she knew was still there. But something else lived behind his eyes now. He felt the earth. He could sense the roots beneath the soil, the wind above the oceans, even the pulse of the planet's crust deep below. It wasn't power. It was responsibility. It was being chosen. Teak stood beside him now at the ridge, overlooking Sky Point. "They're not just visitors," she said. "They're the ones who left the seed. Aren't they?" Jonas nodded slowly. "And now they've come to see if we'll plant it or burn it again." Down below, the first of the ships opened, not with weapons, but with people, or what resembled people, tall forms of light and sinew, others cloaked in shimmering dust. One stepped forward, cloaked in something that looked like a second skin of stone. It spoke, not aloud, but into every mind near it, not in language, but in memory. Jonas flinched as an image hit him. Earth, millions of years ago, being carved from raw chaos by hands that floated among stars. These beings had shaped life before vanishing, not to abandon it, but to wait. They had left Earth with one rule: only when humanity proves they can create without conquering will they inherit what was left. Teak stepped forward. "So what now? You just hand the planet over to us? After everything we've done?" Another image. War, famine, fire. Then laughter, birth, peace. A single child planting a tree in a cratered wasteland. The memory spoke more clearly than words ever could. Jonas raised his voice, though he felt it shake. "We failed 1,000 times. We still fail. But we keep choosing to build again. We kept choosing life." The lead alien bowed, not in deference, but in agreement. One by one, the other ships began releasing their cargo, machines of healing. Not soldiers, not weapons, but builders, gardeners, waterbinders, sky singers. They worked in silence, joining with human engineers and surviving AI, restoring what had once been only myth. In Africa, deserts bloomed green. In the Pacific, coral. Cities returned from ash. The dead forests of the Americas lit with new blue leaves that hummed in the wind. Jonas and Teak walked among it all, Symbols, yes, but more than that. Carriers of the truth. The truth that the earth had always been waiting for its children to return to her not as conquerors, but as caretakers. Still, not everyone believed. Some whispered in shadows, saying Earth had been given over to aliens, that humanity had surrendered, that war would return. So Jonas opened the first archive tower and broadcast the truth to every screen, every implant, every satellite still awake. He showed the images of cities being healed, not ruled, of beings teaching, not commanding, of weapons being turned into trees, and of one moment, burned into the sky forever, the day Earth turned gold because her children had finally come home. But the peace didn't mean silence. Not yet. One evening, as golden clouds rippled overhead and the wind carried the scent of blooming stoneflowers, Teak found Jonas sitting alone on the edge of a growing lake. He held the golden sphere again, its glow softer now. "They're still watching," she said. "I know. Waiting for something?" He nodded. "They're not the only ones out there," she swallowed. "The scour?" "No. Something worse. The ones the scour ran from." She felt the chill in his voice. "How long?" "Years, maybe decades. But they'll come." Teak looked up at the sky, no longer blue, but kissed with gold and silver clouds, lit from within by orbiting ships that never slept. "Then what do we do?" Jonas stood slowly, his hand over the sphere. "We prepare them. All of them. Earth isn't a battlefield anymore. It's a promise. To who? To every lost world waiting in silence." Teak watched as he walked toward the seed archive, light trailing in his wake like stardust. She knew in her bones what he was becoming. Not just the keeper of Earth, but the voice of it, and far above, deep beyond the edge of the solar veil, something vast and cold stirred, something older than the architects, something that did not build, only consume. It turned its gaze toward the glowing speck of reborn light and began to move. But Earth didn't tremble this time, because now it had someone to answer.